Hello everyone, this is Mr. E. I know I got a lot of explaining to do, which, you know what, I guess I'll explain right now. I don't think I can record any video gameplay. For starters, I am currently, sorry about that, but I'm currently on a laptop which I'm pretty sure does not work properly. I tried recording some gameplay, but it either came out very laggy or the recording itself wasn't being recorded properly. I mean, I guess I might try on a later date, but don't expect any video game play for quite some time. It's kind of sad though. So instead, I thought I could do maybe just, a little talk, a little discussion between me and you. And I'm gonna talk to you about something very personal to me. So let's begin by painting a picture. When you're a kid and you grow up, you feel this urge that you want to belong somewhere. We all have that. We're human beings. We're social animals. It is just how we are. Nothing to be ashamed about it. Even though I'm an introvert, I too want to sometimes feel like I belong. So what do? Well, we find community. Some of them a lot more genuine than others. Let me explain. Whenever we want to create community, there's one of three things we follow: family, friends, and I guess our religion and our ethnicity, our culture. All those last ones kind of fall into the same category, at least for me. All of these, while genuinely important and pretty helpful in a lot of cases, don't feel genuine. Let's start off. Family. Obviously, being with your family is a pretty good thing. You want to, make your family proud. Want them to love you for who you are. But let's be real, they're your family. They're there no matter what. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold, but they're there for you no matter what. And so, it can't really feel genuine now, can it? Second is friends. Obviously, friends do feel genuine because you grow this relationship with another person that you maybe have something in common with. Maybe you both go to the same place. But that one is very situational, very circumstantial, because chances are, unless you've went with them online, at which point you could probably go with them whenever you want, you probably won't be able to see them when you move out or go someplace new. There's a big reason why they create such a big deal out of moving to different neighborhoods. You gotta go to a new place. That has kind of been a problem for me. I remember moving quite a lot, so many times that I never really bothered with many friendships. And third is your culture. That one should technically be a bit obvious because, it's where you live. It's the combined ideals and philosophies by which you, your friends, family, and everyone around you, your neighborhood, follows. But then again, you don't really have a choice in that regard because, it's your home. You gotta follow that no matter what. So yeah, all those three, while not seeming genuine, can give you a sense of community, a sense of belonging. But what if you wanted to be genuine? What if you wanted to be part of a community that you knew wanted you for who you are, regardless of who or what you're into, what you wanted? There is a place for that, actually. A fandom, a community. Those people that like comics, those people that like movies, those people that like video games. And I'll be honest, ever since I was a kid, sitting down on the floor watching TV as I grew up, or just watching mesmerized at a boxy computer at all the games my father got me, or even just picking up a book and reading about this one thing I really liked. I wanted to be able to share that, you know? I wanted to be able to go up to somebody and be like, hey, here's this new game I found. Want to talk about it? But thing is, it can be hard finding a fandom that not only you want to be a part of, but you kinda have to, you can find more people that are also into said fandom. This is something I kind of realized not from my not from my young age, but quite recently. In fact, I kind of wanted to be part of a fandom when I was, I guess, back in 2016 or so. That was also the same time I discovered YouTube. During that time, I wanted to be part of a fandom. At that point, well, I had thought about a couple of fandoms here and there that made me like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna join this one. The ones in my mind were the likes of Star Wars. It seemed interesting. It also was a bit complex. That one I know for certain. It was definitely complex. I also remember watching the Star Wars Clone Wars cartoon growing up and really liking it. Next up is Marvel and DC. I also grew up watching DC themed cartoons and really being inspired by those mainstream MCU movies. They were definitely good. I guess I even also wanted to be a Blizzard fan because, man, Overwatch when it came out and World of Warcraft when I discovered it seemed so magical, seemed so broad, so diverse. So many things. I wanted to be a part of them. Maybe at least one of them. I wanted to, open up a door to find a bunch of BlizzCon fans, Star Wars fans, and be like, hey, guess who it is? Guess who it is? By the way, I have a theory. Does anyone want to talk about it? Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. And I kind of look forward to that day. But then time went on and things have changed. You already know why I picked those particular examples. Star Wars was one of the first to fall. The new trilogy, oh please. That one is so abysmally bad that even today I can't understand why people wanted that. DC, pretty much trying to gain any sort of popularity that they once had, pretty much failed at their first attempt at a mainline DCEU universe, as they were desperately trying to copy what had already been done by the MCU. And speaking of the MCU, I don't think I need to talk about how much they failed. Modern MCU, that is. I genuinely remember watching Endgame in the theaters and being so moved by the ending and looking forward to what would happen next, only to be severely disappointed by what's being put out. Sure, there's a few hits here and there, and sure, some of the movies I'm like, they're okay. But let's be real. The MCU is not what it used to be. And Blizzard. Oh boy. Overwatch's story is still okay for now, but World of Warcraft's story has been handled so damn poorly. I mean, I genuinely like Sylvanas as this complex, interesting character. But nope, she's just a regular ass villain now. It felt so crushing. I mean, by all accounts, I was not a lifelong fan. I genuinely feel for those lifelong fans that have been around for decades, maybe, only to see what has become of them. And I'm a newbie. I just thought of getting into a fandom and came to find all these popular ones just in utter disappointment. I guess I can kind of feel glad that I just began. But that ain't right now, ain't it? Before all this, while I was finding this, finding a fandom, I came across this one fandom that I would come to really enjoy. I would really like what they're putting out. And for once, despite the company itself being objectively pretty bad, I mean, actually, I don't know if they're objectively bad. They could be ran by some decent people, but overall, what they're doing isn't entirely good. But I still like what they're putting out. The IP has not disappointed fans in such a long time, and despite some hit or miss media out there, the fans still love them. I think you know what I'm talking about. I'm of course talking about Warhammer 40k. What is Warhammer 40k? Long story short, it's basically a bunch of grown-ass men paying hundreds of dollars in plastic miniatures and playing army with other grown-ass men. But those figurines would have their own little stories to basically explain their place. And these stories would get really, really out there. In fact, Warhammer 40k started off as this one IP that was so dark that it basically introduced the term grimdark, which is used to explain any sort of, you could say, IP so depressing and sad that you might as well have put a label not for the faint of heart. And you might think to yourself, why do I like this? Why would I think of going for an IP that says on the, you could say on the label, you will cry, or you will be, or you will not feel good when you read this? And I'll admit, there are plenty of different things here and there that I'm like, ew, I wouldn't support that. I just gotta say it outright. I don't support that. But there was a sort of charm to it. It was an IP that took itself seriously. At first, that's what I kind of didn't like about it. It took itself a bit too seriously at times, even though there's a lot of things that are a bit too, out there. But then I kind of liked that about it. Because think about it. All these other IPs I mentioned before, one of the other factors that they fell hard is because they stopped taking itself seriously and just started doing whatever they wanted, regardless of what fans would think of it. Warhammer, despite it doing the same thing, doing a lot of different things, regardless of how fans would think about it, at least sometimes, they've always taken themselves seriously. Like in this one book I heard about, I haven't read it, but I want to read it, called The Infinite and the Divide, or was it The Divine? We basically have a buddy cop story about two immortal robots that are basically just two grumpy ass men fighting each other. And it's apparently so hilarious, yet so endearing, because it does have its own serious moments that really make you think. But I guess I really need to go into the parts where I really like about Warhammer, and I guess I already told you the first thing. It takes itself seriously. And that, I feel like, is a big, big factor for any sort of story, is that it needs to take itself seriously. Obviously, you have to accept the fact that it's fiction, anything can happen, and that the true, you could say, decider of things is not the fans or the community or even sometimes the shareholders. It's the author, the one who's writing it. He's the one who's in control. If the author decides this character is going to win against this character, even though he's weak, that character is going to win. But this, and yes, Warhammer has that, but despite all that, it still manages to take itself seriously. Each of the different factions tells a different story, and each of the different story has its own separate lesson. Not to mention Warhammer itself is kind of a parody, a satire on different ideas. You know, the Space Marines are supposed to be, mentally, I guess, stunted? I don't know. They're definitely not healthy. They're not mentally healthy. The Eldar are a satire on hedonism and spirituality. And the Orcs are just, they're just satire on British. But they still manage to tell their own stories, and these stories are pretty relatable and pretty, grounded. And that's remarkable of them. Second is their originality. Warhammer itself isn't that original. It's basically a science fantasy, as in a fantasy in space. It's got humans with their usual human worst traits, xenophobia, arrogance, hubris. Eldar also with arrogance and hubris, but with a lot of magic. The Orcs are savages. There's dwarves that were added quite recently, and they hold a lot of grudges and such. And there are some couple of unique ones there. The Tau and Necrons and Tyranids are there. I guess the Tyranids are not that original. But still, each of these different factions have their own feel to them, their own idea to them, that they feel original. Sure, you can look at one thing and be like, hey, that's clearly inspired, but still, putting the whole thing in front of you and you're like, yes, this is from Warhammer 40k. This originality is quite refreshing, honestly. Especially with some of the more actual original factions out there. Like the Tau. They're pretty damn original, all things considered. Second is their commitment to the bit. When Warhammer started, they told themselves on the label. They told it on the label. It's grimdark. And they do not hold back. In these photos, you see horrible things happening. You see people being burned on a stake. You see these little malformed babies with wings just flying around. You see these giant robots hulking around, walking around, and then you read about them and they're so damn messed up. But you remember that it was written on the label, grimdark, not for the faint of heart. And you're like, you know what? I commend you for that. I can definitely commend you for that. In fact, here's one thing. It's not one of my favorite factions, but it's definitely a faction that's worthy to be talked about. That is the Adeptus Sororitas, or the Sisters of Battle. This is an all-female faction, by the way. You'd think, it'd be filled with some message, some political agenda. Nope. They're the same as any other humans, just so much more. They have their own feel to them. They have their own stories. They have their own units. And they're not any less creepy or messed up than the rest. And that is commendable. They've made an all-female faction that genuinely fits in their world. How many people can say that? How many other companies out there are just trying and failing so hard to create the perfect female protagonist, only to fall straight on their asses. And I guess finally is their loyalty to said IP. One of the things that made me want to make this video, this discussion at least, is this one news I heard about Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill has already said that he's going to be making a 40K themed show. Said show is not confirmed what it's going to be, but Games Workshop have stated that they are not choosing any random company to produce this show. They're not going to compromise on their image. They're not going to give it to some company that will just make whatever they want. No, they're going to choose a company that will show this IP the respect it deserves. And you know what? That is commendable. That's the first time I ever heard a company have the guts to look up to, like, you know, the modern society and be like, no, I am not following what you're doing. We're going to be doing our thing. And you know what? That is definitely commendable. And honestly, yeah. Now, obviously, Games Workshop is not a perfect example. The miniatures they have are pretty much overpriced. I heard unanimously agreed. It is a very bloated universe. It takes a lot to get into the whole universe. It took me quite a long time to kind of learn everything involved. I mean, I think it took me 2 years, to be honest, for me to just know the basics of this world and the also basic timeline of events. If you want to know, you could go to YouTube and look at this YouTuber called Bricky. He's pretty good at explaining it. Some of his recent videos are about it. He's even being given the nickname John Warhammer after all. But yeah. And not only that, but Games Workshop have also been very stringy on their copyright. And some of their own, and like I said, not all of their media are hit or miss. Some of them are not as good as they should be. And well, I guess that's all I wanted to say. I don't really have much of a script, to be honest. I just wanted to get this off my chest. Also, sorry for not being able to upload as much as I wanted to. I wanted to do a lot more. I even made a video labeled I'm Back. I don't think that video has any voice. Oh my god, I'm so dumb. I did not have a microphone on me. And like I said, I'm running on a pretty dingy laptop that, like I said, I already tried. The recording is not as smooth as it should be and not as optimal as I want it to be. I should definitely try out some other alternatives. But yeah, you know what? If you can be patient, I will try my best. I do not like leaving things unfinished. I will most definitely try to come back to this. I'll try to be a proper YouTuber, I guess. I'll try. I don't plan on making this my main thing, at least not for a long time. I do plan on getting like an actual job and getting an actual income instead of relying on an algorithm that is, at this point in time, not as good as it should be. But apart from that, yeah, that's all I wanted to say. So goodbye, and be well.